Hello and welcome to ThePrint. I'm Risha Chatlangya, and today we are going to talk about the Swachh Bharat Mission, which was launched in 2014 with an objective to make India open defecation free and ensure proper waste management. As the mission completes 10 years on October 2nd, we are going to talk about the achievements, implementation challenges, and the missed targets. To discuss this, I am today joined by Debolina Kundu. She's a professor at the National Institute of Urban Affairs and she currently holds the charge of director of the institute, which is under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. I'm also joined by Atin Biswas. He is the Program Director, Solid Waste Management and Circular Economy at the Center for Science and Environment. Thank you both for joining us today. So, the Swachh Bharat mission has the urban component and also the rural component, but today we are going to largely talk about the urban component, its implementation in cities. So, Debolina ma'am, I would like to start with you first. Uh, what, according to you, are the key achievements of this mission?
Thank you, Risha, for this question. I think the key achievement has been reduction in open defecation. I think most of our cities are now open defecation free. We have improved our solid waste management practices.
Mhm.
The legacy waste remediation has also started in many of our cities. Waste processing, waste collection is happening. I think most of the cities are doing 100% waste collection. Circularity in waste management practices have also been adopted. People are understanding the importance of waste. Fecal sludge and waste water treatment has started. Again, promotion of sustainable lifestyles. I think through Jan Andolan that has also started, and we do think that we are aware of reduction in the greenhouse gas emissions through waste to energy conversion and reduced landfill variance. I think that's also there. Resource conservation, waste minimization, then the impact on the overall urban resilience of cities. The policymakers, the practitioners, and also the citizens at large. There has been adoption of waste management practices, and also there has been a lot of positive movement in this direction.
Okay. Atin sir, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I completely agree with Debolina ma'am. Swachh Bharat Mission was launched back in 2014 at a time when we were grappling uh, with the problem of open defecation, um, more in the rural area and then on urban. But solid waste management back then was not much in the discussion, and definitely you couldn't have all the problems addressed at one time. So the priority for the first phase of Swachh Bharat between 2014 and 2019 was definitely much more on making India open defecation free. So all the project mission components were particularly focusing. And the beauty of SBM was that it was not just a flagship program. There was massive financial devolution. I mean, the largest by far in the entire world. Um, and apart from, I mean, we realized after making a long journey since the 80s when India had the first flagship program called the CRSP, that it was much more a behavioral problem than an infrastructure problem. So even if you have access to sanitation, whether you're using it, it is all about how you behave to sanitation, right? And then there was a problem of access to water, because even if you have access to sanitation, you still need to have water to use that facility. So definitely, I mean, Swachh Bharat Mission has done a tremendous work since 2014. The challenge in rural areas, I said, was much more because compared to about 4,300 odd cities in the country, we have 250,000 gram panchayats, right? So the challenge was way more, and the institutional arrangement between the urban and rural government, as we speak, are still very, very different. Okay, so the urban local governments has much more resources, much more capacity. They are much more connected that way. Uh, but the urban governments are dealing with a tremendous influx of rural to urban migration for livelihoods. So that also created a lot of pressure on the urban agglomerations, urban local governments to deal with this issue. So more than the infrastructure or the number of sanitation access, I'm not focusing so much on the solid waste part, because that kicked in uh, during the transition, because in 2019 we declared ourselves open defecation free. I still remember that we had a huge program led by Honorable Prime Minister, the Mahatma Gandhi International Sanitation Convention, which was probably attended by as many as 55 or 56 different countries, including the countries who are still struggling with the problem of open defecation there. Uh, and then we had a preparation period between 2019 and 2021, that how, I mean, the achievement that we have been able to make through this mission, how do we sustain? So if I summarize, the phase two or Swachh Bharat Mission 2 had the challenge of sustaining the achievement of phase one, and then also to look at solid waste management, wastewater management, fecal sludge management, um, and the focus was gradually shifted from open defecation free to these elements, while a lot of uh, uh, mission elements were still focusing on how do we continue the momentum that was generated during the phase one of the mission.
Hmm. We'll come to the solid waste management part in a while. As you both mentioned about open defecation free, a lot of toilets have been constructed not just in urban area but in rural areas. But if I talk about urban areas, we still find, and even in rural areas, there have been reports pointing out that toilets have been constructed without adequate water supply. And but in urban areas also, there is a major issue of management of toilets. There are issues related to water supply. So what do you think, where are the civic agencies going wrong? What can they do to address this particular problem? uh, Maybe Atin sir, if you could take it first.
This problem was there, I mean, it was there traditionally, right? Now, as we progressed uh, with the implementation of Swachh Bharat Mission, these problems started surfacing more and more, right? There are many areas, even in urban India, uh, which are not typically within the jurisdiction of the urban local government, which are typically populated or predominantly populated by migrants. So still there are issues that the urban local governments are dealing with to provide clean water, or to at least provide drinking water supply those areas. And then there are a lot of places where basically individual toilets were not really constructed because there was shortage of land, and there are many other issues. Okay, so the idea of community toilet was introduced, and also there also we faced a lot of challenge that who is going to manage those, maintain those toilets. So the entire movement, I mean, there was a concept of CLTS, this community-led total sanitation. I'm sure Debolina ma'am can talk a lot more about it. So the whole idea of CLTS was revolving around how that ownership could be created among the communities, where and urban areas still have massive shortage of land. So even if you want to create infrastructure, uh, it's difficult. But and at the same time, when this migration is happening, let's say y- you do a campaign to sensitize people, and the campaign has not been able to cover a good number of population who may have migrated in the last couple of months. So they are still not aware. Like, open defecation is a very subjective statement, right? I mean, you can never say that, okay, there's not a single people in the world who are going out and defecating in the open. That's not possible. At least in a country with billion plus population, it's very difficult, right? So there has been hits and misses. There is no denial about it, right? Even we are almost through the first half of the second phase of Swachh Bharat Mission. I can say with absolute confidence there's a good number of people, both in rural and urban, who, despite having access to sanitation or not having access to sanitation, are still going out and still defecating in the open.
Okay. Ma'am, would
Yeah,
you like to add?
yeah. Through the Amrut mission, efforts are being made to provide water supply to all our cities. I think it's a pan India drive,
Hmm.
but yet there are institutional challenges.
Hmm.
Again, coordination between various
Hmm.
missions, so which is one of the stumbling blocks. But efforts are on to see how this can be tackled. And one of the first question which you had asked, I think one important thing which has happened is the decline in the infant deaths because of the Swachh Bharat mission. Our
Hmm.
infant mortality rate and under 5 mortality rate has
Hmm.
improved considerably. So there was a recent study, I think last week it was out, done by an US university,
Hmm.
where it was found that annually 60,000 to 70,000 deaths have been averted because of Swachh Bharat Mission. So I think this is one of the greatest achievements that the country could achieve in the last 10 years.
Coming to the solid waste management part, again, a lot of work has happened in cities, but we still find now, in the last 10 years, especially in the last few years, we still find that cities are struggling when it comes to managing waste. Roads, that if you go out any city for that matter, you will find garbage strewn on roads, dump sites overflowing. We see it in Delhi as well. So, what is the issue when it comes to solid waste management? Are civic agencies, do they don't have the capacity, or is it that they have not planned it properly, the waste disposal mechanism? So, Atin sir.
Yeah, yeah. Solid waste management, I would say, is still at a very nascent stage, at least in India. As a practitioner, at least that is how I see it. Uh, Policy wise, I do not see much of a problem there. We are very well placed in terms of policies. In 2016, we had a very landmark year. We had a basket of policies, which had all the sustainable elements embedded right in. But as you said, you know, we still have problems with solid waste management, and it is not limited to dearth of infrastructure. I would rather say it is more about awareness, sensitization, and inclusive governance. Like Debolina ma'am said in her opening remarks, that Swachh Bharat Mission was probably much more about the Jan Andolan, about creating the demand, or uh, creating the sense of ownership among people, that this is the right direction to go. Okay, uh, if I give you some numbers, so urban India produces about 160,000 ton of solid waste every day, right? We have a live dashboard from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs that gives you the collection, segregation, and how many facilities do we have: waste to compost, waste to energy, material recovery facility, and all the rest of it. Uh, I would say that there are some issues with being a little more transparent, because if you look at the programmatic arrangement, Swachh Bharat Mission again, let me also summarize the three key pillars of Swachh Bharat Mission phase 2, specifically with reference to solid waste management. Okay, so the first pillar was to clean up the garbage mountains, and we have more than 3,000 of them in our country. So clean up the mountain, reclaim the land. But while you do that, it's very, very expensive. Let's not make a mistake there. It's very expensive. So the union budget allocation was created to share the financial burden of the states and the local authorities, because constitutionally sanitation is a state subject. So even if there are policies, even if there is flagship program, the state still will have to implement them well, right? And there could be difference in political ideologies, and we have seen that in many cases. To complement Swachh Bharat Mission, government introduced Swachh Sarvekshan in 2016. Okay, Swachh Sarvekshan was supposed to do comprehensive independent assessment of the sanitation performance, both in waste and wastewater and ODF sector, and then feed into Swachh Bharat Mission, so that Swachh Bharat Mission then take an informed decision that okay, this city is doing well, because they also had kind of performance linked disbursement to disburse the money, disburse the fund to the local government. But those funds were connected to certain milestones that the cities were supposed to achieve. Right now, here I would say collection is, I would say, very very good as I speak, because collection is happening, uh, and that is why I apprehend that we still have a lot more focus to visual cleanliness than actually dealing with the waste when it is collected, right? And at the epicenter, the issue of segregation is still haunting us, because as a practitioner, I can safely tell you that if the waste is not segregated at source, you lose half the battle there, regardless of what technology you bring in or what infrastructure do you have. And that is exactly what is happening, right? Because Swachh Bharat Mission revolves around the slogan of waste to wealth. Okay, so if it is about waste to wealth, and if the waste is mixed at source, then those are not really complementing each other. So, if I have to say one quick fix to the ongoing mission dealing with solid waste management, we have to invest a lot more on behavior change than investing on the infrastructure.
Okay.
Exactly. I do agree with you, 100 and more than 100%. I think behavioral change is the most important thing. And until and unless we citizens uh,
Hmm.
realize the importance of
Hmm.
waste segregation at source, and why
Hmm.
can't we do it ourselves at home, and
Yeah.
also be minimalistic in our attitude, like
Hmm.
why so much of paper, why so much of plastic? So until
But
and unless each and every individual understands this, and then it goes. I think the local bodies do have a role in collecting and segregating and then disposing of that. That's there. But until and unless this Jan Andolan becomes a success, which has
hmm.
to some extent happened, but I think a lot needs to be done. But there are success stories. It's not that the entire India is crumbling under waste. There are cities. I visited Indore very recently, Indore, Ujjain, where even during busy market during daytimes, you find the market
Hmm.
absolutely neat and clean. And I asked a few of the shopkeepers, like, what is it that you have done? How could you maintain such cleanliness at all hours of the day? So their answers was that we took the ownership. We are proud of keeping our city clean, and being judged as first. So we take pride in the cleanliness of our city. And when I spoke with the municipal commissioners of those cities, they said that leadership, both political and administrative, the bureaucracy was important. And in addition to that, what they mentioned is that they did not outsource. So each ward had a sanitary inspector, and the entire waste value chain was in-house, from collection to segregation to uh, doing the final stages. So, and massive IEC campaign was also there. So, household segregation buckets being given to each and every household. So, they invested also heavily on biogas plants. 100% waste was getting treated, and 100% remediation also happened. And recently, I also visited one of the remedial sites of Leh, and where I found again the same thing has happened. The legacy waste has gone 100% off, so that's being now used as a parking space. So even in those hilly tracks, if there is a strong leadership and people do at all levels do have a strong sense of ownership and a determination to keep their city clean, things can happen. So I think that determination needs to come at all levels among the citizens and also from the city managers.
As per center's data, door-to-door collection is conducted in almost 97% of the municipal wards, and segregation is being done at in around 90% of the over 90% of the wards. But here, even if what you spoke about waste segregation at source, even if citizens want to do it and they segregate waste, what sometimes we see is that when the collection happens from municipal corporations, when they come and collect the waste, it's all mixed together. So the whole purpose is defeated. So do you think that civic agencies have taken measures to rope in the informal sector in this? Do you think that informal sector has been actively engaged in segregation of waste, or so that we ensure that we have segregated waste, and even the waste that reaches the landfill site, which is used in waste to energy plants, is good quality waste that we is sent. Atin sir?
Well, let me start with the last question of yours. Once the waste is getting into the landfill, um, managing that waste from there, and I honestly, I haven't have I haven't come across many success stories that the waste that are being dumped in the landfill are actually being used for gainful purpose or being used in the waste to energy sector. In fact, the waste to energy. Let's understand waste to energy a bit. Waste to energy either works on the on the combustion of segregated, combustion of the waste that are actually combustible, so you can extract the energy and you convert the energy into electrical energy, or you can do biomethanation of the biodegradable waste and then use that gas to run a generator to produce energy. So there are two possible ways that you can run a waste to energy facility. So yeah, I mean, coming back to the first part of your question, collection is no doubt very, very high, but I honestly, I have my doubts on the data that I also follow that data very regularly. So when it's about collection, so collection is so high because sometime the validation verification mechanism of the data, because there is a central portal which is managed by the urban ministry, which is called Swachh. So every city has a mandate to populate their data. It's a monthly MIS that every city has to post. But then unless the states uh, uh, have a validation mechanism of their own, because monitoring is still continuing to be a challenge. So the ministry has their own monitoring mechanism, but then the ministry, it is not ministry's prerogative to validate the data. We have to understand that as well, right? So I'll just give you an example of how sometime I honestly, I'm not in a situation to say that this data is entirely unreliable, but I can tell you that sometime we sometimes we manipulate the data. Let's say I know that my city has 10,000 sources to collect waste from, but within the resource that I have, I can probably collect waste from 8,000 sources. So I then change the denominator itself. So I say that I have only 8,000 sources, where the number of sources is 10,000, right? Because I'm being able to collect waste from 8,000 sources. So when you change the denominator, then your percentage of collection goes up, right? And again, the percentage of segregation, as you said, um, definitely the treatment and processing has increased. When I say treatment and processing, it is essentially about uh, treating the wet waste, which is more than half or at least half of the waste that we produce. 50% of the waste that we produce is biodegradable. And if you look at this waste stream alone, this is kind of a single source of all major problems, because this can rot, this can decompose in community, in informal dalaos, in dump sites, it can rot, right? So there are many measures that we can initiate. We can probably talk about in the later part of this discussion. So right now, a lot of transparency is required to kind of at least validate the data that the cities were submitting to the ministry's portal, and then again do the annual Swachh Survekshan, which is an on-ground assessment. So in Swachh Survekshan, the data that ministry is receiving through this portal is also taken into account for desk review, and then the ministry hires a third-party agency who then hires their own on-field assessors, on-ground assessors, and it is physically done. Let's appreciate, let's compliment Government of India This is a humongous effort, right? We also, I mean, CSC also works in the global south. I have programs in 19 nations in the global south, including 15 African countries. Now we are trying to introduce this Swachh Sarvekshan model to create a benchmark of the cities over there. They are happy to learn from the Indian good practice. But let's not take anything away from the achievement that the mission has been able to make, both in phase one and phase two. But there are still challenges. If you talk in terms of solid waste management, uh, biomining is happening. So clean up the old garbage mountain is happening. There's a live dashboard under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, but it is not happening at the scale it was supposed to happen, because when the phase two of Swachh Bharat Mission was launched, there was a target that was set by the government that cities with less than 1 lakh population will complete cleaning up the garbage mountain by 2023, and cities with more than a lakh population will do it by 2024, 31st March 2024. So we missed both the deadlines, and there are cities who, despite willing to do it, are not being able to do it because of their internal capacity, and also because, like I said, uh, cleaning up the garbage mountains. You think about Delhi, we have three of them, and three largest of them, the Okla, Gazipur, and Bhalsava dump sites, right? So operations are going on even here, but it is so expensive. It's very, I mean, if I give you a ballpark figure, every ton of waste needs almost 6 to 800 rupees. So imagine a dump site which is already housing, say, 15 lakh or 20 lakh ton. How much money do you need to actually do this job?
So what needs to be done then? What is the solution to this particular problem? And because at this rate, we cannot really clear our dump sites, landfills.
You asking me or the
Yeah,
Can I
you.
come in?
Okay, yeah, please go
Yeah,
on.
yeah. So what I find in many cities like Bangalore, there is a decentralized way of managing waste. So nothing goes out of the housing society. Everything is
Hmm.
processed, collected,
Hmm.
processed, and utilized within the uh, housing society. I think if something of that sort can happen in each and every city, there can be a solution of that we do not increase our legacy waste. Whatever is there, we start working on those, but we do not start the challenge afresh. I think that could be one solution, which I think has already taken off in many cities.
Okay.
Atinji, if you could
Yeah.
share your
Yeah,
thoughts.
I couldn't have agreed more with Debolina ma'am. In fact, the point that Debolina ma'am just made, it is there in the law. If you look at Solid Waste Management Rule 2016, which is now being revised because we made a lot of progress and there are issues which needs to be addressed by the law as well. So you have to first explore whether you can manage your waste in a decentralized facility. So a decentralized facility is essentially a facility which is created right within the community. So let's say a decentralized facility serves a catchment of one or two or three municipal wards, depending on the situation. It varies from one city to the other, right? And then if you divide the sources of waste generator, there are two large category. One category is the individual generator like you and I, okay? Households, individual households. So we are generating waste, and then there are waste generator who are generating waste in bulk quantities. So the law identifies them as bulk waste generators. Okay. So the bulk waste generator has the sources who produces more than 100 kg every day, including all the waste streams. So the law mandates these sources to manage their organic waste in situ within their premises, either by themselves or by hiring a private agency if they are not capable of doing it. And the Central Public Health and Environment Engineering Organization, CPHEO, which is a technical body within the Ministry of Urban, they brought out a report back in probably 2017 or 2019. I don't really remember it. So they clearly said that more than a third of waste were coming from this bulk waste generator. And it is all about enforcement. It is all about enforcing the law. And there's one more issue that I would like to highlight here is the municipal bylaw. You know, India had two massive reforms back in 1992, the 73rd and the 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. 73rd was for panchayats and 74th was for the urban local bodies. So these two reforms were done to to delegate more power and authority to the local government, because they're constitutionally local government. We have elected body there, so that they can adopt and enforce local laws to promote social justice and economic development. So they could use this power, and it is also there in solid waste management rule 2016, because the solid rule does not provide you with all the fine details. So the rule provides you with the framework that this is the functional ambit of the rule, but that rule has to be translated in the municipal bylaws in a way so that, and municipal bylaws are as strong a law as any union or a state law. Let's not make any mistake about that. Once it is notified to the citizens that this is the law for this city, and this law can differ from one city to the other. Okay, the cities can use this power to enforce the bulk waste generators. They can even change the definition of bulk waste generator. Many cities have done. Debolina ma'am just spoken about Indore. Definitely, Indore continues to be the number one city for the last 7 consecutive years. But if you ask Indore how they have made this kind of miracle between 2014 and now, I had the fortune of visiting Indore back then. I mean, Indore was a mess, and today they are a champion. It's not because of they have technology; they have humongous infrastructure, both for dry waste and wet waste. They have the best plant that we have that converts organic waste into bio CNG. That single plant produces generates almost 14, 15 lakh of revenue every day. But if you ask them who do they attribute this success to, they would say the people. It is all about segregation. It is all about enforcement. Every bulk waste generator in Indore, I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to visit Indore in the recent past, but they take so much pride about their city, right? If being a visitor, if you throw a piece of trash on the road, there high likelihood that somebody would come and ask you that pick up this trash and put it in the bin. That is the level of awareness, that is the level of ownership that they have been able to generate. So coming back to the agenda, what can we do to improve the situation? Definitely, um, informal sector. I'll give you an example to just finish it off, and because I'm taking too much of time,
No,
there will
I
no,
on the informal sector, do you think we've adequately used the informal sector? We've roped
absolutely no, absolutely no. The reason why it has not happened, because there is no SOP, there is no standard operating procedure for the urban local bodies of the state that this is how you should integrate them. I'll just take one more minute to tell you what it can do. The city of Pune is the second largest city in Maharashtra. They have a cooperative of waste pickers, all informal. 80% of them are women. There are more than 4,500 women. So they have a cooperative called Swachh. Okay. So this cooperative has signed an agreement with Pune Municipal Corporation. They are collecting waste from almost 900,000 properties, 9 lakh properties every day. So the entire door-to-door collection has been given to this cooperative. You know what they do? The informal waste pickers are not interested. They are not so much into wet waste management. They have almost nothing to do with wet waste management. But their livelihood revolves around the dry waste, or to say plastics. Okay. So, and they are not paid a single penny by PMC, by the local authority. The two sources of their income is one, the user charges, which is very, very strongly enforced in Pune. So every household is supposed to pay a fee for getting their trash collected from the doorstep. Okay. That varies from some 70, 80 rupees to 150, 200 rupees, one city to the other. So let's say if one waste picker is collecting waste from 250 to 300 households, so that much money is going straight into the pocket of the informal waste picker or the member of the Swatch. The other source of waste income is the dry waste that they collect in a very clean form. And look at the beauty of this model. They know that if the waste is mixed, then they will lose the value which they can otherwise generate by selling the waste in their own aggregators, in their own network. So segregation is embedded right there, and it is happening for more than 10 to 15 years, right? And by this model, if you compare the cost of collection and transportation, because this one component alone consumes about 60 to 70% of the municipal budget to do solid waste management. So this cost for Pune is at least 40% less than any city of its size. So if you replace the workforce of the ULB, because I'm not saying that fire everyone and bring the informal sector in, but then almost 50 to 60% of Indian cities do have a contractor or a concessionaire to get their waste managed, where the door-to-door collection part can easily be given away to the informal sectors by organizing them into a cooperative, something like Pune did. So it is possible. We have loads and loads of example. Look at Odisha. The entire state is managing their waste in decentralized manner. 114 ULBs are doing it in a decent. Even cities like Bhubaneswar, Cuttack, Puri, these are bigger cities. It's not that they don't have problems, but they are managing it. They're managing their waste in decentralized facilities. So it's happening. Yeah.
Could come in here. So I think it's I think the point which you raised is very pertinent, and I it is important, I think, to also synergize between the various missions. So you talked about that Pune has been able to reduce its the expenditure on people who would do this. So why can't we? And I think the ministry is trying to implement this in various cities, that synergize between the self-help group and waste collection, right? So we can have both the NULM, the National Urban Livelihood Mission, and the Swachh Bharat Mission work in tandem, so that both benefit from each other. The city gets clean, and there is also economic activity around this. So that is one of the very important steps ahead if we want all our cities to be clean, and also for the small towns where I think clustering would be very important. Like we take a clustered approach. So maybe for two or three small towns, there is one facility which takes care of waste management. So that also becomes very important. And in terms of fecal sludge management, I think what our ministry is just now doing, piloting in a few cities, both Gram and urban, they are working together, so that through the National Urban Digital Mission, there is one facility, one service which is desludging, and through that, the peripheral areas close to urban, they are also getting benefited through this mechanism. I think that could be scaled up once we have the results of the pilot study.
Thank you so much. It was a very interesting discussion. Thanks a lot for sharing your views on this issue. Thanks.